Our next speaker is an economist and senior teacher at the Raffles Institution. He is an author and former chief examiner. He has taught in 9 schools across 3 continents. And teaching for 40 years, he keeps up to date with social media, which keeps him young. All right, let's put our hands together and welcome Mr. David Sowden from the Raffles Institution.
Hello everyone. Wasn't it an inspiring start to our session today from the director? I thought it was wonderful. I'm a little bit on the deaf side. My wife tells me that as a result of that, I speak quietly. I thought that was illogical, but empirical evidence seems to convince me that she was right. Anyway, this morning, I was really inspired by what Mr. Lee said, because there are times in Raffles when I feel that I am all alone. There is virtually no one who uses Twitter as part of their educational strategies. This is certainly true of the other Angmos there, even though I'm the oldest of them. And sad to say, it's also true of my economics colleagues, of whom there are plenty. And sometimes I get the impression that if I even utter the word Twitter, everybody's going, oh, there he goes again. And so I was really inspired by Mr. Lee saying, I am doing the right thing. I might be old, but I am doing the right thing, and it will be compulsory in the future. I thought that was great. I'm really very pleased with this. What I want to do today is to just tell you what I do with my economics students at RJC, sorry, Raffles Institution. I'm not making any claims about anything other than this is what I do. It started in Caracas in Venezuela in 1996. I was teaching at an international school there, Escuela Campo Alegre. Sounds cool, doesn't it? Escuela Campo Alegre. It actually means Happy Fields School, which is not so good in English. And the point to be talking about my days at Campo was that was when I got my first email. And very soon I found an email community of other Leeds United supporters. And so very soon I was exchanging emails with people I'd never heard of, and we were talking about our beloved football club. For those of you who don't have long memories, we used to be good. My wife thought, When I came back to Singapore, the first thing I did was got an email account so that I could get onto the mailing list. Leeds. And then I thought, wait a minute, if I can share knowledge about a football club with people whom I don't know, although they are brother and sister Leeds fans, maybe it will work in economics. And so in October 1998, I set up the first ever internet mailing list at Raffles Junior College, as it was then. Now everybody's got them. 2.5 years ago, I thought wait a minute, it's happening again. I was using Twitter. I was following, not footballers, because they don't usually have anything interesting to say, but journalists who really focus on Leeds United and some other Leeds United fans. And I was using Twitter. And in particular, I was able to get up to the minute details of how we were doing in any particular game, now that we're in one of the rubbish leagues and we don't get shown on Mio. And I did that for about 9 months, and it was the same sort of thing. Wait a minute, if I can do this and get real-time information that we've lost again, maybe, given the nature of economics, it's happening out there all the time as we speak, maybe Twitter can be of use to my students. And that is what made me start using Twitter for my economics students. How many of you have got Twitter accounts, please? Okay. How many of you don't see yourselves ever having a Twitter account? Okay. Right, one there. I'll see if I can make them change their minds. Okay, I am not going to do Twitter 101. There is a how to tweet bit at the end of this, but we won't get onto that. But it will be in the material that you will get afterwards for those of you who don't know. There's no particular educational value on that, I just like it. In fact, I like it so much I'll do it again. Now, as an economist, you'll understand that ultimately, in most of what we do, we look for empirical evidence to resolve thorny theoretical issues. And one day, I suppose, somebody, almost certainly not me, will do some empirical work onto what use is actually made of tweets that disappear off into the ether. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to try to do that. Hey, give me a break. I'm on my last 3 years here. Then it's retirement. However, this is a bit of evidence that fell into my hands in the form of a Teacher's Day greeting. And it's almost impossible for you to see, isn't it? I've underlined things. It actually says, "Hi, Mr. Sowden. First of all, you're the only teacher I have who has a Twitter account. It's really cool." The bit underlined says, "It makes it very easy to share economics-related news and updates on a much more, presumably, informal platform. And because of your constant sharing," I presume she means continual, as opposed to constant as in please stop. "Because of your continual sharing, I've started following accounts like The Economist," good, "vegan testimonials," sorry, I'm a veggie. And she goes on to say, "I considered being a vegetarian, but my stomach failed me." And then she says she follows Paul Krugman, who you know is the Nobel Prize-winning economist. So this is all I have in the form of evidence that some, if not all, of my students find it beneficial to open up their Twitter accounts and see what I have sent them. This is what Twitter say about themselves. And that seems to me, as an economist, I can say Twitter is the best way to discover what's new in the world of economics. And this is what it claims to be. This is what I would like to think it is for my students. In other situations, it might not be that. Does any of you know which person has the most Twitter followers in the world?
Lady Gaga?
Nearly. I think Gaga is fourth. Katy Perry is number one. Bieber's number two. I don't follow either of those. I do follow number three, Barack Obama. He doesn't tweet much. Perhaps he's a bit busy. Okay. Okay, this is what Twitter says about itself. 140 characters or less. Sometimes it's really frustrating. There's a countdown as you're doing your tweet, and you get to -1, and you think, oh, you've got to rewrite the whole thing. So what's the point? Anybody know who said that? William Shakespeare. There is something to be said for brevity. Sometimes, though, it is a bit of a nuisance. Okay. Okay, this is me. This is the original me. That's Don Revie, our greatest ever manager. However, this is me in my academic sense or professional sense. I still managed to get Leeds United in there. I hope you can see it. Yes, you can. Good. The number of tweets that I've sent have gone up a little since then. I sent one this morning. In fact, I'm the only one who appears to have used the back channel. Shame on you. Come on. Yes. You'll notice there's no photograph there. There's an economics diagram. I wasn't going to use supply and demand, but everybody does that. Have we got any economists here? Any economists? This is what economists call the bliss point. And it is the best possible use of resources in one diagram. The bliss point. It's not really going to be of much help for Mr. Tarman on Friday in the budget, but that's why I have that diagram there, the bliss point. This is something that I only put into my presentation a couple of weeks ago. It's something new that's happening. One of the things that I've been asked to do at Raffles is to do some work on pedagogy, not just with my younger colleagues, but particularly with my younger colleagues. And so I started looking to see what there was in the way of academic work that is available. And I found this. This is one guy, I forget who it was, I apologise to him, whoever he was, that says that 3 Twitter identities is optimal. Well, you know that I've got 2 already because you've seen them. And this is the only one with a photograph. That photograph was my last ever gig. I used this one purely for pedagogy, and you can see on there, at least I hope you can. This is for education, economics and football are found elsewhere. So I've got 3 identities. Over the top, maybe. This is some of the things that my students will encounter if they follow me on Twitter. I'm glad I did it in black and white. Okay. One of the things that I do is I read the Straits Times over a cup of coffee, and sometimes I think, okay, my students should read this. Sometimes I will think it's so important that I will go to the digital version of the Straits Times and send it to them. Most of the time I won't. And this reminds me of what Mr. Lee said earlier this morning. He was talking about how in times gone by he would wake up and he would read the Straits Times. And at the time he said that, I was thinking, okay, back in 1975, when I started teaching, I might be wandering down the corridor and I might bump into one or two of my A-level students, and I might say something like, hey, did you see that really interesting article in The Guardian? Or something like that. And they would almost certainly say no, and I would say, oh, go and have a look. And that would be it. Twitter is like an up-to-date version of this. I do this once, and then all my students know that I suggest that they go and read it. Whether they do or not is up to them. Economists think in terms of cost and benefit. I think if just one person reads it, it's worth it. And frankly, I was going to read it anyway. So even if nobody reads it, it doesn't cost me very much. I can't say that I do this all the time, but here we have got a tweet with a shortened link. I learned very rapidly how to use Bitly, which is very, very useful. And so this was a really useful data set. And then I just said to my students, okay, imagine you're doing a case study. Not me doing it, you doing it. What would you ask? I didn't actually require them to do it, but it gave them something to think about. What else have we got here? As you probably understand, we do a lot of exams at RI. It's very important. One of the things that I like to do with the exams that I set is I like them to be a learning opportunity as well as just here we go practicing an exam again. And when you get a chance to do a follow-up like that, it makes it all the more meaningful. This one here, you can see it was sent after the prelim to the H3 class. For those of you who don't know how the Singapore junior college system works, H3 is for the elite students. We have 1,100 students doing H2 economics, and we have about 30 doing H3. And so the piece there, which I retreated from Joe Stiglitz, who's a very, very important economist. And as it happened, it fitted very, very nicely with what they had just done in their prelim. Okay, why have I got this one up here? Yes. One of the things that I learned to do very quickly was to sort out the people that I follow. I follow about 300 people now, and most of them don't tweet all that much. Barack Obama has tweeted once all the time. I've followed him. Lee Hsien Loong's tweeted 3 or 4 times, so he's quite verbose compared to Barack. So we can sort them out into lists. So I have a list where they're just economists. I also make a point of following organisations, UNDP, San Francisco Reserve Bank, etc., etc. They don't necessarily tweet very often, but occasionally they do, and it reminds me of their existence. This one is always very useful. This one, ooh, this is a little bit of, shall we say, less than neutral politically. These are people who are in favour of the banking transaction tax. Lots of journalists. Tim Harford, for those of you who do understand economics, Tim Harford is really very, very useful. And I expected that all those things would be available when I started tweeting. What I didn't expect was this. I found, to my surprise, that out there was an abundance of economics teachers who were doing the same sort of thing, who were using Twitter, and they were willing to share it. And so this is a list that says lots of inspiration and ideas from these terrific economics educators from around the globe. So there's a community. And of course, the reason why I mention that is because one of those terrific economics educator is me. And so I'll come back to it later. If you make use of the hashtag, then you find all sorts of sources of inspiration. This is what I say to my students. Almost all, I think, of the current class that I've got do actually have Twitter accounts because they're young and that's what they do. I don't expect them to follow the World Bank. I don't expect them to follow Paul Krugman. So I say to them, okay, this is the deal. I follow Krugman, etc. And I act as a filter. If I think it's going to be useful for you, I will send it on to you. If Krugman's talking at more or less Nobel Prize winning level, then I probably won't understand it either, so we'll just forget about it. So I follow so my students don't have to. This is the hashtag, or the back channel sometimes. This is not economics, so I haven't done everything on economics. Just over a year or so, I led a trip of 66 students to Bhutan, and we said to the parents, frankly, we don't know how much Wi-Fi we're going to get over there, but this is the back channel for the trip. Great trip it was. If you get a chance to go to Bhutan, you must go. And I now follow Tshering Tobgay, who's the Bhutanese Prime Minister. So this is the back channel for economics and business teachers. And at any one time, if you go into Twitter and go to the search and type in hashtag ECBUSTeach, then you will get a whole load of stuff that other economics and business teachers have tweeted about. Sometimes they'll be asking you things, asking everybody if they've got any ideas. Sometimes they will say, I did this really good exercise. Want to take a look? Moving away, I think, from economics for a bit, there are lots and lots of them. So, for example, this one, which you can't see, this says http://tweetchat.com/room/EDSG, which is, of course, for education in Singapore. You don't need to copy that down because it will be made available to you. I don't particularly make a habit of looking at that, but when I was asked to do this, I thought, let's have a look and see what are the sort of issues that arise when Singapore teachers use that back channel. You can never know what is going to be on there. It will be sometimes very quiet, sometimes there will be a lot of very interesting things going on. I thought it might be a good idea to say, okay, let's have a look at something that isn't economics. Have we got any history teachers? History teachers? No history teachers, oh well. Same sort of thing with the economics teachers, except these are all history. This one here, what are the most important concepts of trench warfare? Anybody interested in trench warfare? Okay. More stuff. This is what I've seen history teachers do. This is allegedly the Gutenberg tweet. The Gutenberg printing press was the first one that ever existed. I think this is funny. I hope you do. I don't know whether any history teacher would think that is an important lesson, but I thought it was interesting. We must have some science teachers here. Science teachers? Okay, we've got no economists, no historians. Did you just come in for the free food? No, you see, the economists would probably think that's a rational decision. So, what we've got here at SciTeach JC, I believe they have a discussion on a regular weekly basis. I'm not a scientist, so I just let them get on with it. And of course, what they've got, apart from all being dead, is they're all on Twitter, which is quite clever, really, isn't it? Here's Charles Darwin. Any lit teachers? Okay. I have never asked my students to do anything like that. I don't know whether it would be at all value. What I'm trying to do here is something that isn't just economics. This is quite a lot to read. I'm certainly not going to read it out. I have to say, I am deeply suspicious of this. Just because it's on Twitter doesn't mean that it's necessarily useful. It doesn't even necessarily mean that it's true. I'm a bit sceptical about that, but somebody, a lit teacher, believes that it has been of some use. Okay. From there, we go on to Twitter 101. It's probably a good time if I stop here. Do we have time for questions? We don't have time for questions. Okay, right. Thank you very much, everyone.